Hello and welcome to Ahval Podcasts, the home of objective, up-to-date and independent reporting on Turkey. Don't forget to follow our reports through social media, on ahvalnews.com or through our mobile app. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome to Talking Turkey. I'm your host, Ahval editor David Lepeska, and with me today is Yunus Emre Açıkgönül, former Turkish diplomat and expert on international maritime law. Thanks for joining us, Emre.
Thank you very much, David, for calling me here.
We are speaking on Wednesday, December 18th, the day after the U.S. Senate passed a defense bill that includes sanctions against Turkey for its purchase of Russian-made S-400 missile defenses and prohibits the transfer of F-35 fighter jets to Turkey. On Monday, Turkish President Erdogan threatened to respond to U.S. sanctions by shutting down Incirlik Air Base, which is used by U.S. military and where the U.S. keeps its nuclear missiles. Do you see Turkey responding this strongly to sanctions?
On the rhetoric level, yes, Turkey will talk very badly. This is what happens in the last couple of years since the relations between Turkey and U.S. got worse and worse every day. So we see a strong rhetoric against the U.S. But until today, I haven't seen a real action from Turkey. You will remember Pastor Brunson was a hostage in Turkey with the allegation of helping to terrorist organizations, etc. And Turkey used the strongest level of language, and Erdogan himself said, we're going to keep him inside. He's not going to leave Turkish prison forever. And then with a simple threat from the U.S., Turkey had to release the Pastor Brunson. Right now, I don't see a reality beyond just a rhetoric, just a language. I don't think Turkey is going to shut down the Incirlik base in Adana, Turkey, or bring another sort of strong action.
I should mention that you were formerly a Turkish diplomat posted in the U.S., so you are very familiar with U.S.-Turkish relations.
Exactly, yeah.
The defense bill also included a provision that ends the U.S. arms embargo on Cyprus. Turkey has been rather aggressive in the waters off Cyprus in the past year, sending several drill ships alongside military vessels, and then just this week landing an armed Turkish drone on the Turkish Cypriot side of the island. How do you think Turkish officials might react if the United States started arming the Republic of Cyprus?
We shouldn't see this issue just an isolated recent bill or resolution from the Senate. So we have seen many sanctions against Turkey. This is just one of the series happening recently. And we should definitely see this in relations to the recent agreement reached between Libya and Turkey in delimitation of maritime boundaries in the Eastern Mediterranean Sea. And how would Turkey react to this? Turkey doesn't have much leverage to react on this issue other than just releasing some statements, which happened recently. Maybe you have seen. That's the only thing they can do right now. Maybe Turkish vessels will start some drilling operations just to showcase that we are holding our stance against this recent U.S. Senate bill. That's what they can do. I don't think they can do anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned the agreement between Turkey and Libya earlier this month. They reached a deal that defines their maritime borders from the northern coast of Africa across the eastern Mediterranean to southern Anatolia. U.S. officials have called the deal provocative, mainly because it includes areas claimed by Greece and by Cyprus. Turkey has submitted the deal to the United Nations for approval, while Greece has dismissed it as non-existent. My first question for you about your area of expertise is, to what extent is the Libya-Turkey maritime agreement legal and binding? And perhaps you could give us a little background on maritime law and borders to help us with that.
Sure. I'll be very happy to talk about this. Just to start with, intentionally or unintentionally, Turkish authorities repeating the same rhetoric. And they are just saying, we made an agreement with the legitimate government of Libya, and thanks to this agreement, we reserved our waters in Eastern Mediterranean Sea, and Greece lost waters. So this is the basic belief in Turkish society, at least, not internationally perhaps. So there is no such thing in international law, particularly in maritime boundary delimitation law. So you make an agreement with a second party, and then you reserve your rights and you just get extra maritime zone. No, that doesn't work like that. If a conflict potentially affects other countries' overlapping areas or claims, you cannot unilaterally, or two sides come together and they cannot just define the boundaries by themselves without agreement with other affected third parties. This is a very basic rule of international maritime boundary law. And this principle has been repeated maybe 10 times in like many major delimitation cases. It's a rule of customary international law, which cannot be changed. So in that sense, this agreement is not binding on other countries. It is an agreement. If we consider legitimate government, it's a valid agreement, and you can register it to the United Nations. But it doesn't mean that after the registration, oh, okay, you acted first and you got these waters. No. I mean, imagine Turkey is making another agreement with Spain. Okay, I'm taking half of Mediterranean Sea, you take half of Mediterranean. Does it make sense? No. There are countries affected in the middle, particularly Greece. There are major Greek islands, Crete, Rhodes, and other islands. It's all these a chain of islands you will see in the map. So it is right below those islands, and I don't believe Turkish maritime boundaries extend to that point. If you have had a chance to see the map drawn in the agreement, which is very excessive, aggressive, and without legal basis.
Well, okay, so how would such borders, how might this agreement between Turkey and Libya become legal and binding? Like if they were to then meet with Greece and with, I don't know, UN officials, could they then make it an official binding document?
Yes. First of all, let's clarify this. UN doesn't have a role in making a delimitation or boundary. UN General Secretary acts as a registrar. So they just receive any agreement. They just put in the system, that's all. And they are not in a position to say, okay, this agreement looks valid and yes, you take these waters. No, it doesn't work like that. So the usual way,
they're just registering that the agreement is made.
Exactly. You can make an illegitimate agreement. They wouldn't say, hey, you cannot make this agreement.
So you and I could agree on a certain chunk of water and send it to the UN, and they would say, yep, fine.
No, yeah, exactly. It doesn't work like that. So
okay.
You're right. And let me explain this a little bit to give a background. So there are 153 coastal states in the world. Excuse me. And there are over 400 overlapping claims, 400 overlapping maritime zones. Overlapping means, so every state has right to claim up to 200 nautical miles exclusive economic zone, we call EEZ. So when this 200 potential zone overlaps with another country's overlapping 200 miles zone, then there's an overlapping claim. Until today, almost 210 of these conflicts has been resolved. And more than half is still remains unresolved. So how countries resolving these disputes? The majority, still maybe 150 of them, were resolved through bilateral or trilateral agreements between the neighboring countries. There are complicating areas where it is very difficult to reach an agreement between neighboring states. And Eastern Mediterranean Sea or Aegean Sea is one of those very complicated waters. And maybe 50 of them or 40 of them were resolved through mediation or arbitration or International Court of Justice or other special courts. So half of the dispute has been resolved. So how we would define the boundaries in the Mediterranean Sea? The first way, through diplomatic negotiations and agreements. This is one way. But when I look at the picture right now, what's happening politically, militarily, strategically, I see very little possibility that there will be an agreement because for two reasons. One, there is a polarized situation in Eastern Mediterranean Sea. So Egypt, the Greek Cypriot and Greece are on the one side, and now Turkey and Libya getting closer. The Libyan government, I would say the Tripoli government, we can always discuss about their legitimacy and if they are recognized internationally, etc. So this is one problem. And there is, in the near future, I don't see any possibility that parties coming together and negotiating on a agreement. Second aspect, the claims between parties are very far apart from each other. So I will put it this way. I like talking about numbers. So currently, Greek side leaves Turkey around 50,000-60,000 square kilometers maritime area. So the recent agreement with Libya leaves, Turkey around 190,000 square kilometers, 60 to 190. It's more than triple. Yeah. That's a huge area. I was telling before, there are disputes, other border disputes on the land in the world. And these disputes about a river is moving 200 meters right or left, in favor of other country. These small issues sometimes become a big problem. Now we are talking about more than the territory of Switzerland, or maybe half of Italy. So huge maritime areas, changing from one party to another party, depending on the claim. So there's a huge difference. And the third side of the obstacle in front of reaching an agreement is that Turkey does not recognize Southern Cyprus. And Southern Cyprus does not recognize any other country other than Turkey, does not recognize Northern Cyprus. So this issue is stalled for years, and there is no progress at all. And now recently, US is lifting the embargo to Cyprus and already sending $1.5 million of assistance. And Russia is involved as well. So the issue gets more complicated. And Turkey has troops in Northern Cyprus to provide the peace, for the purpose of peace. So all in all, I don't see any possibility. And the only possibility could be one party is taking the case to the International Court of Justice or any other special court, ITLOS, for example, and a court is giving a decision. But when a court gives a decision, I don't see it will be either Turkey's claim or Greek claim. It will be somewhere in the middle, closer to Turkish claim. But that's the only way. As of now, that's the only thing I can think of.
So maybe that's why, or that's part of the reason Turkey made this deal with Libya, in order to highlight its view of its territorial claims for future mediation or judgment.
Yes, I can say that. That's for sure. Countries, they start, even on the negotiation table or in a court case, they start with an extreme claim, and they ask more than what they could get. So,
exactly. Would you describe this as an extreme claim?
Yes, I would, but this is more than extreme. That's the problem.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that? Is this like much more than most other countries would dare to claim?
That's one thing. Second, let's say you take this argument and you go to a biggest international legal forum. You go to biggest experts in the area, Paul Reichler, Payam Akhavan. And they would probably say, sorry, we can't defend these arguments. Like, this is beyond the best possible scenario. So we can only ask to the court the best possible scenario. That's my understanding. That's my opinion. So they will say, no, we can't defend this. Ironically,
wait. So you're saying that basically Turkey has taken a position that's indefensible in a court of law?
Yes. I mean, what I'm saying is sometimes lawyers take cases which is not defendable, which they don't believe in, but still this one is beyond that. This one, they will say, okay, I don't believe we will get this case. They will tell clearly. The first thing they will tell to Turkish authorities, hey, listen, there is no way we can get closer to this. The best scenario is going to be this, which is probably my scenario, which is I would leave around 100, maximum 130,000 square kilometers to Turkey in a delimitation based on the recent developed case law jurisprudence, like case law created by the law, by the courts.
Here's a question. So has there been a situation similar to this one, at least in some ways, in which there were several countries arguing over a vast, shape of water with different territorial claims and so on? And if there has been, like, how was it resolved? How was it worked out? Did somebody have to take a step towards, negotiations? Did somebody make a gesture? How were instances like this usually solved, or have any been solved recently?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Before going into that, you asked me in the previous question, excuse me, you asked me about the Turkish stance, and I said it is beyond the extreme. And I was going to add additional point. So Turkey historically had a stance in Eastern Mediterranean Sea, which is the maximum the Turkey could get in a international court. And this claim with this Libya agreement is now changing. It's changing. The previous claim by Turkey was 150,000 square kilometers. Now it is 190,000 square kilometers. There is an additional 40,000 kilometers in the recent change with this Libya agreement, which was not part of Turkish policy. This just came with the Libya agreement. So this suggesting that like Turkey didn't have this policy, is it because, the Libyan government is a friendly government? Why don't we just claim more than what we could get and make an agreement with Libya and just have a strong hand and leverage in the negotiation table? And Libya government is ready to sign, and probably there's something going on in exchange for this agreement. So this is one thing. Second thing is, recently Turkish Foreign Ministry purged a lot of diplomats, and many of those were international law experts. Right now, the team in Turkish Foreign Ministry is not guided by legal experts. I know names. I'm not going to give their names here, but people who are guiding this process are not lawyers or legal experts, just generic diplomats. I respect their expertise in diplomacy, but this is a specific technical area. And after losing a lot of diplomats in foreign ministry, I think that our Turkish Navy is more in a leading position than the Turkish foreign ministry. You may or may not know the name, but Cihat Yaycı, he's a vice admiral. I first read his publication maybe around 8 years ago. When I read his publication, I didn't know about him. Now I am seeing more him on the media. It looks like he introduced himself, and Turkish media introduced himself as the mastermind of this recent Libya agreement. He just gave a couple of days ago a presentation to diplomats and other broadcasts in Ankara, in Turkey. So he is claiming to be the mastermind of this recent deal.
What's the name again?
Cihat Yaycı.
Yes, I have heard the name. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he was very popular. So when I read his publication, as I said, 10 years ago maybe, I tend to refer or cite any Turkish academics writing in this area, but I couldn't find anything that I could cite on his publication. His map at the end of the study doesn't have any legal basis. He talks about generic things and then he just jumps into the map. So obviously someone drew the map and gave him, or maybe he just didn't make the conclusion. He just wanted to arrive at the conclusion. And in his studies, he is comparing cases in international law which has nothing to do with the Eastern Mediterranean Sea. Just one example, if it is interesting, if it's not too technical, when he gives no effect to Greek islands in Eastern Mediterranean Sea, which is including island of Crete and Rhodes, he compares the case with the Black Sea case. There was a case in the Black Sea between Romania and Ukraine. There was a little island. It's maybe an island. The court refers as a rock formation. It's a little bit bigger than a baseball field. And there are maybe 10 or 15 people living there just for the purpose of claiming that this is a inhabitable island, and these people are guards and servicemen sent by the government. It's on the Ukrainian side. And the court said this island is right at the beginning of the border and it is very small. I'm still gonna give this island full territorial sea, but I'm gonna ignore it in easy and continental shelf delimitation. So he's saying in this case, that's the only thing. In this case, the court gave no effect to this Snake Island. Same thing happens to the Crete. No, I mean, Crete has a population of 700,000 people, and this is a very major thing. The population of Libya is 6 million, and island of Rhodes have over 100,000 people living in. It's just saying, okay, you have
not the size of a baseball field, yes.
No, yeah, exactly. It's like saying, hey, you have a Porsche Spider, I have a Volkswagen Jetta. They're both the German cars, so we have the same car. So no, there's a huge difference between them. Nicaragua and Colombia case is the most similar one to the Turkish situation. So what happened in Nicaragua-Colombia case is, I will try to explain it clearly and simply. So Colombian islands, which are apart from its own mainland, close to Nicaraguan mainland. These islands are located maybe like 50 miles away from Nicaraguan mainland. Mm-hmm. We call these islands on the wrong side. Wrong side means on the other side of the equidistance line, the median line. Mm-hmm. So in this case, by the way, these islands are very small islands. Some of them are discussable if they are low tide elevations, rock formations, or islands. Some of them are submerged when it is high tide. So
some of them are inhabited or not?
Some of them not. Some of them not.
Some of them are. Okay.
Some of them are. Some of them are. I'm not sure if they're habitant, but they're habitants. But they are. Some of them are. Nothing to compare Greek islands, but on a like significant size. Mm-hmm. But no comparison. So in this case, the court said, I'm going to make the boundary between the islands and Nicaraguan mainland. So that's going to be the median line. And then I will make a favor to Nicaragua because it has a longer coast. And these islands some of them are very small and apart from each other. They're not all together. And then court gave 3 times more effect to Nicaragua. Imagine a line drawn and then gives 3 times more effect to Nicaragua and 1 times effect to Colombian islands. And shifted the line.
What do you mean by effect?
Effect means, okay, let me explain this phrase instead of using that word. It's called effect. The effect to be given to island means how much maritime zone are you going to give? So basically what happened is the court made a median line and then shifted the line. At the end, the distance from the line to Nicaraguan mainland was 3 times more than the distance between median line to the Nicaraguan Colombian islands. So basically, it moved the median line 1/4 towards the islands in favor of Nicaragua. So we don't have to know all the technical details, but what court did, it took islands as a base point to start the median line and then shifted the line in favor of Nicaragua. And this is the best case scenario for Turkey.
Wait. So the question is, how did we get to the court? Was there, an argument? Mm-hmm. Did they come near like a conflict, like it's happening in the Eastern Mediterranean now? How did we get it to the court?
In Eastern Mediterranean or Nicaragua-Colombia case?
No, that's what I'm saying. How did that get to the court?
Oh, yeah. So Nicaragua always like to go to the courts. Now they just sued Costa Rica in the same waters. And when Nicaragua sued Colombia didn't want to go to the court. Same happened in 1978 to Turkey when Greece.
Wait. Slow down. Stick with one. So Nicaragua and Colombia had argued about these islands for decades, for a week, for what?
For long. I'm not sure how long, but over a decade. Yeah, over a decade.
Okay. And then Nicaragua sued Colombia in what court?
In the International Court of Justice, which we call the World Court.
Okay, so the case was there. The case was heard there.
Yes. The case was heard in International Court of Justice.
Okay. And then did it take a long time to reach this decision?
Generally, the International Court of Justice takes around 3 to 4 years to resolve a maritime dispute. The arbitration courts generally takes 1 to 3 years. Yeah, that's what I would say. I think it took around 4 or 5 years. Yeah.
Do you see this Eastern Mediterranean Turkey claim situation heading towards the International Court of Justice?
So the problem is, contrary to the domestic law, in international law, both parties should give consent to the court. And generally, one party wouldn't like that. It's very, very exceptional that both parties would like to go to the court. That's the biggest problem. In Nicaragua, Colombia case, Colombia didn't want to go to the court. Colombia said, no, we are not accepting your jurisdiction. But in Latin America, there's a Latin American pact all the countries signed, which gives automatic authority and jurisdiction to International Court of Justice for disputes threatening the peace in Latin America. There was another document signed by all the countries. So immediately after the decision, Colombia left that pact. They said, okay, we don't recognize the court decision. We're not happy with this. This is excessive, which is not acceptable against international law, etc. And then
Colombia was forced to go to the court. Turkey would not be so compelled to go to the court. So if Turkey refused to go, it wouldn't happen.
Exactly. There is a very good example in 1978. Greece went to the International Court of Justice against Turkey for the maritime boundary delimitation in the Aegean Sea, not in the Eastern Mediterranean Sea. Mm-hmm. And by then, I think Demirel was the Prime Minister of Turkey. And Turkey rejected the jurisdiction of International Court of Justice. And Greek side used Demirel's speech in one forum. He said once, we are open to any kind of solutions, including a judicial solution to the problem. So Greek side used this words as if they are giving consent to the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice. But at the end, International Court of Justice said, if Turkey doesn't clearly give me the consent for jurisdiction, unfortunately, I'm not going to look into the case. And then it was rejected.
Speaking of Turkish officials, Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu said last week that Turkey would, quote, of course, use military force if any other nation conducted drilling in the waters that it is claiming in this maritime agreement with Libya. But France, Italy, Greece, Cyprus, Egypt, Russia, the US, Britain, Israel, even Turkey's ally Qatar have plans that conflict with Turkey's vision for this chunk of the Eastern Mediterranean. So how do you see this playing out in the end in terms of drilling rights? Do you think there might be a military conflict in the Eastern Mediterranean?
There was issues in the past too. There were drilling vessels. There was a Italian drilling company. I cannot remember the name. It was 2007, I guess. They were doing some drilling and exploration operations, and Turkish military vessels asked the Italian drilling vessel to leave the Turkish waters. So the problem is, Turkey already using it as military force, and Turkey on its face looks like dedicated to continue this stance. And if it's going to become an escalation in the military side, there is a possibility, of course, not as high as the situation in South China Sea, but still there's a possibility. The thing is, the overlapping drilling fields which were announced by Greek side or Israel, they are not really close to Turkish mainland. They are in the very edge of the Turkish claims, which is arguable if really belongs to Turkey or Greek side. So I don't think Turkey will take a very strong stance. There won't be any military conflict without making sure those borders are resolved through a meaningful way, not through just with a basic agreement with Libya and Turkey.
Let's switch over to the Turkish Foreign Ministry. You served as a Turkish diplomat for almost 7 years until you were dismissed after the 2016 coup attempt, when Turkey dismissed something like 500 diplomats, alleging that they were linked to exiled Turkish cleric Fethullah Gulen, whom Ankara blames for the failed coup. Can you tell me how your dismissal happened? Did you get a phone call, a memo? What happened? And where were you?
Very good question. I like this question. It has been a while. I haven't talked about this. I was almost forgetting it. So, it was 2016 after the coup attempt. I was working in Costa Rica.
A week later? Or?
Let me remember. I think a couple of weeks later. Not a month later, earlier than that. But there was a series of dismissals until it came to me. I was serving as the deputy chief of mission in Costa Rica, in the Turkish embassy. By then there was a temporary ambassador, acting ambassador, and before I was a chargé d'affaires, the acting chief of mission for 5 months. And when I was dismissed, I was the first person in the office as usual. Ambassador used to come around 11. And I was the one always going and just checking the letters coming from, telegrams coming from Ankara and reporting to ambassadors as soon as possible. So I just opened just one letter, came including my name, actually having my name on it, saying that I was dismissed, my clearance is cancelled, my passport is being digitally cancelled, and it should be taken and physically destroyed as well. And I was supposed to be issued a travel document, which we give to prisoners normally. And I was supposed to go back to Turkey as soon as possible. That was the content of the letter I received. At that moment,
I opened the letter, but probably in most cases, the person who's dismissed isn't the one opening the letter, right?
Exactly. But in a lazy embassy, so probably you are the only person going and doing real work. Like literally, I was the only one like doing every work.
What was your first thoughts? What was your response?
I was shocked. I said, like, how did it come to me? I mean, we saw friends being dismissed, very qualified diplomats, and it was shocking at the beginning. And then I had a couple calls. A professor friend of mine, he was also in immigration law, and his cousin was helping people in this situation. So I just talked to him, like, what's my best scenarios? He gave me some options. I could qualify for green card and express entry and couple resident situations. So I just wanted to make a quick decision. And I was doing my PhD as well at the United Nations University in Costa Rica. And the president of the university generously offered me to stay in the university and teach, because I was sometimes giving basic courses as part of my PhD degree. So I had options. So I just wanted to make a decision what I wanted to do. At the end, I become a businessman. So nothing worked out as I planned at the beginning. So yeah, and the first 1 week, 2 weeks was very, very shocking. I lost 2 kilos of weight, and then I recovered. A good friend of mine, Andy, he says, Turkish government destroyed you, although you served very well for your government, and then you recovered so quick that you become undestroyable anymore. That's what he said. I'm super happy now with my current life. I'm in a different path. I'm doing my academic works on the side, doing still my PhD, but yeah, I changed my trajectory kind of.
So, but how soon after you read the letter that said, we're canceling your passport, you must destroy it and return to Turkey, how soon after reading that did you decide, I am not doing that, I am not going back to Turkey?
It took 10 minutes to decide.
10 minutes,
and
wow.
it took
Wait. Did you have and do you still have family there?
I had family, yeah, by then.
No, I mean in Turkey.
My parents are still in Turkey, yeah. So both my brothers were called to the police office, and they were asked about me, and they were gone through some basic administration inspections, not through a prosecution. It's funny that one of my neighbors gave my name to the police, saying that I was working in the United States when the coup happened, and I was aiding.
Which was not true.
Which was not true. And I was aiding and collaborating with the CIA. That's what he wrote to the police office, which came part of the court documents to us. So this person is a very strong Erdogan supporter, doesn't know how to read. Even he spelled my name wrong. And he has this Islamist mindset, like strong. He belongs to we call Tariqat. And he gave my name.
So you haven't seen your family since then?
I have not seen my family since then.
How do you miss them? How do you miss Turkey?
I talk to my nephews every day through WhatsApp and video calls, etc. So this is a part of the life. That's the sad part, but there are good sides as well. So trust me, I'm happy, like very happy.
So, I mean, I think it was about 500 diplomats that were dismissed.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you think the purge has altered the Turkish Foreign Service and Turkish diplomacy more generally? I spoke to another former Turkish diplomat earlier this year, M. Bahadır Gül, who wrote that the purge destroyed Turkey's reputable diplomatic tradition. Would you agree?
I would agree. Let me put couple information. Turkey had 5 Harvard graduates.
He was one of them.
Oh, was he? Okay. I don't know him in person. But now we have 0 in Turkish Foreign Ministry. My friends, one of them is in prison now. He has a Georgetown degree. He was ranked in the first 100 in the nationwide university exam. Genius man. He reads one book every 3 days. Genius man. And there are a lot of them. Probably I am the only maritime law expert who has internationally recognized publications in peer-reviewed international journals. People who are coming up with this new policy of Libya agreement, I know them. They don't have a background. They don't have any English publications. They don't follow what's happening in the international fora. They just write in Turkish and they support each other. There's a saying in Turkish, kendi çalıp kendi oynamak. That means you play the music and you dance to it instead of you being DJ and giving parts to other people. You just do it by yourself. That's what's happening in Turkey. And academia as well.
If you had not been dismissed, you would probably be working on this Turkey-Libya deal.
I would love to, honestly. I would love to, but I would be opposing the deal probably. So I think the Turkish military is more having bigger role in this deal. That's my understanding because, as I said, Turkish Foreign Ministry has a different perspective on the issue. So maybe I will just be avoided anyway. So
no, but you said also one of the things that the Turkish Foreign Ministry has lost is its legal minds, legal experts.
Oh yeah. So that was always a problem. Turkish Foreign Ministry didn't have legal experts. They had only some generic diplomats knowing about the general things about maritime law or international law. So when Davutoglu was foreign minister, he was the one recruiting a lot of legal experts. And in our batch, they hired 12 international law experts, diplomats. And then afterwards, many of them were purged. Yeah, that's true. Probably there are only like 5 or 6 of them now. In the whole foreign ministry.
In this past May, the Ankara Bar Association revealed that more than 100 of the diplomats suffered systematic torture and sexual assault while in police custody in Turkey. What were your thoughts when you heard about this?
That was very emotional time because I know some of those people, great diplomats, great people, very smart people, very intellectually educated. It came right after Ahmet Davutoğlu officially announced his political party, because there's always a correlation between these diplomats being purged who were recruited through Ahmet Davutoğlu time. Ahmet Davutoğlu was the prime minister by then. Now he's, I'm sure you are aware, he's now starting a political campaign against Erdogan. So Erdogan recently closed down the Şehir University, which was founded by Davutoğlu. So, I see a correlation, but it is, torture. We are in 21st century.
How could this government that they had worked for years then turn on them and torture them?
Yeah, that's the thing. I was talking to my professors. Hey, professors, like, this is what's happening. Like, what I thought. They are shocked. They can't believe it. And when I show them the reports by the Ankara Bar Association, so they are shocked. They say, like, we have no idea. 21st century, you are torturing your own diplomats, your previous diplomats, former diplomats. No explanation. I can't put it anywhere. I mean, what can be the reason torturing someone?
Is the assumption that they were interrogating them to get information about the coup attempt?
So the thing is, even Erdogan government or AKP knows that these people has nothing to do with the coup. I was on a holiday in Belize. I was doing snorkeling when the coup happened. I didn't know the coup is happening. I came back. I didn't have any cell phone or anything. And the coup happened. Almost the government took the control, and I had no idea. And then I'm being claimed or blamed of being part of the coup. They know. Actually, the purge didn't start with the coup. There was 1 year ago, before the coup, there was not 1 year ago, a couple months ago, there was a exam in the Turkish Foreign Ministry. And these people who were purged afterwards, they took this exam. It was a promotion exam. There's a critical stage in Turkish Foreign Service. After 6 years, you take one exam, become first secretary, where you really represent your country and you have bigger roles in foreign relations. 95% of these people failed the exam. I was one of those, and the reason where afterwards foreign minister said they didn't speak English, they didn't know English. We didn't know. When we checked the exam results, they seriously didn't know. And I am one of those. I don't speak English. So I'm just using Google Translate right now, talking to you, not knowing English, etc. Since then, there was a systemic target against these people where they made the names in advance, and purge was coup was just an excuse, as a pretext, used as a pretext.
Well, right?
That's
no, I know, but I'm just
thing.
wondering what do people think was the context of the torturing? I'm guessing they didn't just torture them for fun. Like they were trying to get
exactly. Yeah. So I don't know the details, but what I heard from my other colleagues, they brought some papers. Hey, please sign this paper. Please say, I belong to this organization, Gulen organization, okay. And I studied their schools, or I was involved, blah, blah, blah. So those was the papers they were forced to sign. That's my understanding. But I don't know the details because they were never published.
Right.
But we know they were forced to sign something. Just testimonies, I would say.
Right, I see. Mm-hmm. Okay, last question for you, then I'll let you go. So speaking of diplomacy, Turkey's ruling Justice and Development Party, AKP, which many view as an Islamist party, uses mosque building abroad as a soft power tool to increase influence in Muslim-majority countries and among Muslim communities in Western countries. You were posted as a diplomat in Washington, D.C. when the $100 million Diyanet Center of America was built in Maryland, not far from D.C. I wonder if you could provide some insight on how the foreign ministry works with Turkey's religious directorate, the Diyanet, and with people in the host country, the U.S. in this case, to build the mosque, and also what's the policy objective of the mosque?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very interesting question. I didn't think about this before, but I think it's, I would say, another form of corruption. Why corruption? AKP uses this to promote himself or the AKP in other countries using people's own taxes and money. That's a simple explanation. That mosque known as Erdogan's mosque, sorry. But it's not Erdogan's, it's Turkey's mosque, if it is. But who's giving the authority? Is Turkish people happy that their taxes are being used? And Turkey tries to use these type of buildings as a leverage as well. There was maybe you have seen in social media, the ambassador to Kyrgyzstan, Turkish ambassador, once complaining to Muslim society in Kyrgyzstan in Ramadan iftar. He said, "We donated a mosque to you worth of $35 million. You are inviting terrorists to your dinner." So, and they are trying to use as a leverage. Maybe TİKA's investments. TİKA is the Turkish organization. Aid organization, yeah. Maybe didn't work out. They're trying this way. But there is a fact, Erdogan, domestically and internationally, has strong support from Muslim people. Muslim in overseas means the Muslim society, mostly people from Southern Asia or Middle East. And internally means the strong AKP supporters, 50% of the population or 45%. Erdogan only cares about those people. Now he's losing his legitimacy in the West as well. But the Muslim society in North America or in Europe are still strongly supporting Erdogan. When you talk to a Pakistani person, an American Pakistani, they love Erdogan. They praise him so much. Maybe it is another part of this strategy, at least keep these people, because now Erdogan, when he goes to Western countries, sometimes he's not able to forums or fora to talk to American people, now he tends to go to Muslim society organizations because there's no other place accepting him anymore, maybe.
Mm-hmm. So you see this as a sort of a form of corruption, a misuse of government funds.
Yeah. Corruption is a little bit heavy, maybe. Definitely misuse of government funds. I was a diplomat. I can't go internal discussions when I was working. I still respect my culture of civil servant. But still, it was not the best idea to do, like spend that much money for this mosque, which was far away from Muslim community living in Washington, D.C. There are other areas that this mosque can be built. And again, like even if you find the best place for Muslim society, like why are you spending this much money? Is it like who's making this analysis? Who is deciding the cost and cost analysis and what it brings to Turkish government in exchange?
I see. Okay, Emre Açıkgönül, thank you so much for talking with us today.
My pleasure, David. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Have a good day.